In a world where everyone is reactive, emotionally hijacked, and fragile under pressure, something important has been forgotten: the ability to remain steady when life pushes, provokes, or challenges you. Buddhism makes a powerful observation that most people overlook. The mind is shaped by reaction, not by events. What happens to you matters far less than how quickly you respond, how deeply you absorb, and how unconsciously you let the world pull you into its storm. And this leads us to a truth that sounds simple, but is radically transformative. True power is the ability to not be moved by the world. When you stop reacting automatically, you stop giving your power away. When you stop chasing, defending, and proving, you stop living like a puppet pulled by every external string. That's when the transformation begins. That's when you step into a new identity, the untriggerable person, someone who watches emotion rise and fall without becoming it, someone who responds instead of reacts, someone whose peace cannot be stolen by insults, chaos, or fear. In this journey, there are 7 gates of inner stability, 7 mental shifts that slowly train the mind to stay grounded in situations that once would have shaken you. And if you're tired of being controlled by triggers, if you're ready to understand how the inner world works, then this path is for you. The world trains you to react fast. But Buddhist wisdom teaches a different direction. Reaction gives your power away. Stability is a trainable skill. When you cultivate it, life changes not because the world becomes easier, but because you become harder to shake. So if you're ready to learn how to become untriggerable, stay close. There are 7 gates. Walk with me. Gate 1. Seeing the trigger before it fires. Most people believe triggers appear suddenly. One moment they feel composed, and the next they find themselves arguing, shutting down, defending, or collapsing into old emotional patterns. But triggers are rarely surprises. They follow predictable patterns. The same tone, the same rejection, the same criticism, the same feeling of being ignored or disrespected, and the same internal story that has been replayed for years. The unfamiliar part is not the trigger itself, but the lack of awareness around it. Buddhism teaches that awareness precedes control. You cannot redirect a pattern you cannot see. Before any reaction, there is a moment of ignition, a flicker of emotional charge, a contraction in the body, a tightening in the mind. If you train yourself to notice this flicker, you gain a level of freedom that most people never discover. The purpose of this gate is to teach that triggers are predictable patterns rather than spontaneous attacks. This shift moves you from reaction to recognition. Instead of being swept away by the emotional wave, you become the one who notices it forming. This shift in identity is profound. You stop being the victim of the experience and become the observer of the internal storm. This process incorporates cognitive pattern detection. You begin to map what consistently activates anger, insecurity, fear, or defensiveness. You notice what conversations tighten your chest, what gestures raise your pulse, what subjects make your thoughts race. Once you can detect the pattern loses its dominance. This gate ties directly to the Buddhist practice of sati, commonly translated as mindfulness. In its original form, sati did not mean relaxation or breathing exercises. It meant remembering to observe the moment something arises. The moment anger begins, you see it. The moment comparison appears, you catch it. The moment the narrative of threat or inadequacy ignites, you recognize it before it takes over. Seeing the trigger before it fires is the first doorway to freedom. When you can observe the spark, you no longer have to burn in the flame. Gate 2. Reclaiming the inner seat. Most people live as if every emotion must be followed, justified, and acted upon. Anger rises and they feel compelled to express it. Anxiety appears and they feel obligated to obey it. Hurt surfaces and they collapse under its weight. This happens because they have never been taught that awareness and emotion are not the same thing. There is a difference between what is felt and the one who is aware of the feeling. The purpose of this gate is to teach the separateness between awareness and effective response. In simple terms, thoughts and emotions occur within you, but they are not you. You are not the feeling. You are the container of the feeling. This shift dismantles the illusion of psychological fusion. Instead of being dragged by the emotion, you begin to witness it from a stable inner seat. In Buddhist practice, this insight is central to vipassana. Vipassana trains practitioners to observe sensations, thoughts, and emotions without identifying with them. A sensation arises in the body, perhaps heat in the face or tightness in the chest. Instead of reacting, the practitioner observes how it grows, peaks, and dissolves. This observation reveals something profound. Every experience is impermanent. Every emotional storm has a life cycle, and without participation, it ends on its own. This also ties to the teaching of anatta, often described as the absence of a fixed self. Emotion is not the self. Thought is not the self. Even identity narratives are not the self. They are passing events appearing within awareness. When this becomes more than an idea and becomes lived understanding, the inner dynamics change entirely. You stop merging with the content of your mind and begin resting in the position of the witness. Reclaiming the inner seat is not suppression. It is not avoidance. It is sovereignty. It means you do not have to ride every emotion like a horse galloping without direction. You can allow the sensation to exist without obeying it and without building a story around it. In that simple posture, reactivity weakens, calm strengthens, and the mind begins to recognize that stability is possible even in the presence of intense internal weather. Gate 3, the breathing interval. Between what happens to you and how you respond, there exists a small, often invisible window. Most people move through life without ever noticing it. Someone criticizes them, and anger fires instantly. A challenge appears, and fear takes over. A comment stings, and defensiveness bursts out. This immediate collapse from stimulus to reaction is the mark of an untrained mind. The purpose of this gate is to introduce the pause as a tactical skill, a deliberate moment that buys time for wisdom. The pause is not passivity. It is not hesitation. It is response engineering. It is the act of creating space between the trigger and the behavior that follows. In this space, the mind has a chance to choose instead of obey, to observe instead of attack, to consider instead of collapse. Without this interval, the emotional system runs the show, and the rational system arrives too late to make any difference. Modern psychology aligns with this ancient insight. When a trigger hits, the limbic system reacts first. It is fast, emotional, and always ready for threat. The prefrontal cortex, the center of judgment and executive function, activates more slowly. The breathing interval is what allows the prefrontal cortex to catch up and participate. A simple breath, taken consciously at the moment of activation, widens the stimulus to response gap. In that gap, a different future becomes possible. Buddhist training has used the breath in this manner for centuries, not as relaxation, but as a handle to hold the present moment. When the breath becomes conscious, the mind returns to center, and from center, reactions lose their urgency. The body softens, the narrative quiets, and the impulse shifts from automatic to intentional. With practice, the breathing interval becomes instinctive. Challenges arise, and instead of exploding outward, the attention turns inward for a brief moment. This is not escape. it is calibration. It gives space for clarity, kindness, or discipline to appear. Over time, the pause becomes a habit, and the habit becomes strength. What once triggered immediate reaction now meets a quieter mind, and wisdom has time to enter the scene. Gate 4. Emotional non-consumption. Every day, people hand each other emotional objects. Some offer kindness, patience, curiosity, and encouragement. Others offer irritation, resentment, criticism, and anger. The untrained mind consumes everything that is handed to it. If someone arrives with hostility, they swallow it and become hostile. If someone projects insecurity, they absorb it and begin doubting themselves. This is how emotional contagion spreads, not through events, but through unexamined consumption. The purpose of this gate is to teach boundaries without aggression. Boundaries do not always require confrontation. Sometimes they are simply a refusal to ingest what does not belong in your inner world. This gate introduces an original metaphor that reshapes this understanding entirely. Do not eat what poisons you. If someone hands you spoiled food, you would not put it in your mouth. Yet when they hand you bitterness, many people consume it without hesitation. This idea replaces the old framing of observe. Do not absorb with something more vivid and memorable. Not every emotional offering deserves to be accepted. When anger, frustration, or insecurity is served to you, you can decline the meal. You can see the emotion, recognize that it originated in someone else's suffering, and leave it on the plate. This is boundary setting at the level of consciousness rather than conflict. Buddhism teaches that most anger is not an attack, but a transmission of personal pain. People throw what they cannot carry. When someone erupts, it is often because they are overwhelmed by their own inner turmoil. Their words and tone are simply the overflow. If you consume that overflow, you allow their suffering to become your suffering. If you refuse consumption, the chain ends with you. This practice is not weakness, it is mastery. It prevents emotional hostage-taking. It breaks the cycle of escalation, and it protects your energy without requiring you to argue, justify, or fight back. In this gate, the boundary is silent, the protection is internal, the sovereignty is maintained. Emotional non-consumption also redefines compassion. True compassion does not mean accepting every emotional burden others place on you. It means seeing the origin of their reactions without allowing those reactions to define your own state. In time, this shifts identity from reactive participant to discerning observer. You recognize that other people's emotions belong to them. Their anger does not have to become your anger. Their insecurity does not have to become your doubt. Their chaos does not have to become your inner climate. Refusing to eat what poisons you is one of the most powerful forms of emotional liberation. It allows you to remain steady even in environments saturated with conflict and negativity. It lets others have their storms while you remain committed to your own sky. Gate 5. Silence as a protective layer. Silence has become one of the rarest skills in a world where everyone is eager to respond, defend, argue, and perform. Many people treat silence as a sign of weakness or surrender, as if being quiet means losing. But silence can be one of the most strategic forms of strength when used with awareness. The purpose of this gate is to explain silence not as passivity, but as strategy. Silence is a protective layer that prevents every external influence from entering your mental space. It acts as a filter, a boundary, and a form of sovereignty over your inner world. Silence filters. When you do not respond immediately, you allow intentions to reveal themselves. People often speak from impulse, fear, insecurity, or frustration. If you react to the first layer, you react to the rawest and least conscious version of the interaction. Silence gives time for the surface noise to settle, and in that space, motives become clearer. You learn what requires attention and what is simply emotional discharge passing through another human being. Silence is also a boundary. Not every attack deserves entry into your life. Not every insult deserves a seat at your table. Not every accusation merits your attention. By choosing silence in the face of provocation, you draw an invisible line around your emotional territory. You show that your state of mind is not up for negotiation, and that you refuse to let others dictate what you feel or how you respond. This form of boundary setting is subtle and sophisticated. It does not escalate conflict, yet it does not surrender control. Finally, silence represents sovereignty. When you do not answer on command, you reclaim the power of choosing when, how, and whether to engage. This is the identity shift of this gate. You become the one who chooses the arena. Instead of being dragged into emotional battles designed by others, you decide if the conversation is worth entering and when the timing is right. This prevents reactive engagement and protects your mental resources from being consumed by meaningless conflicts. Buddhist teachings have long understood that noise and reaction feed the ego, while silence feeds awareness. Silence does not mean inactivity. It means refusing to be moved by every gust of emotion in the environment. Silence allows anger from another to die out instead of spreading. It allows accusations to lose their fuel. It allows manipulation to fail because there is no immediate response to latch onto. With practice, silence becomes a shield. It shields your attention, your energy, your dignity, and your peace. Not every attack deserves entry. Not every disturbance deserves a reaction. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is the one you choose not to make. Gate 6. Acceptance as disarmament. Most of the suffering people experience is not caused by what happens, but by the internal war they wage against what has already happened. A painful event might occur once, but the mind will replay it, resist it, argue with it, deny it, and resent it 1,000 times over. This is why acceptance in Buddhist philosophy is not weakness, it is disarmament. It is the process of laying down the inner weapons that keep the wound open. The purpose of this gate is to transform acceptance into a weapon against suffering. Acceptance removes resistance, and in doing so, removes secondary suffering. Pain is a natural part of life. Loss, change, discomfort, and impermanence cannot be avoided, but resistance turns pain into prolonged suffering. When something unwanted happens, two layers arise. The first is the direct pain of the event itself. The second is the psychological recoil. This should not be happening. The second layer multiplies the suffering far beyond the original wound. Acceptance closes that second layer. Acceptance says this is what is happening right now. It does not demand approval, passivity, or agreement. It simply refuses to fight reality with imagination. When resistance drops, the nervous system softens, the mind steadies, and clarity begins to appear. From this clarity, decisions become cleaner. You can see what needs action and what needs release. Buddhism has a simple way of explaining this dynamic. Pain hurts once, resistance hurts 1,000 times. When the rain comes, acceptance walks through it. Resistance curses the sky, clings to expectations, and drowns in its own frustration. The rain does not change, but the experience does. Acceptance also neutralizes emotional attacks from others. People may insult, criticize, or misunderstand you. Without acceptance, you spend days replaying the moment, trying to correct the past or rewrite what has already been said. With acceptance, you acknowledge that others behave according to their own conditioning and state of mind. You stop trying to make life match your preferences and instead learn to move skillfully with what is already here. This gate is not an invitation to surrender your power. It is the opposite. When you stop wasting energy resisting reality, you gain energy to influence what can actually be changed. You let go of the imaginary battles and focus on the terrain in front of you. Acceptance is the moment the war ends. It disarms the mind, protects peace, and reveals that reality loses much of its sting the moment you stop fighting it. Gate 7. The slow forge. Many people seek transformation as if it arrives in a single moment of revelation. They wait for a breakthrough, a sign, or an epiphany that will suddenly make them calm, wise, or untriggerable. But real change rarely comes from sudden enlightenment. It comes from repetition. Just as strong metal is not forged in a flash, but shaped slowly by heat, pressure, and consistency, inner peace is built through daily cultivation. This is the slow forge. The purpose of this gate is to replace the old framing of compound effect with an original metaphor. Instead of imagining growth as accumulation of tiny gains, imagine it as craft, a forge, a workshop, a disciplined process of shaping the inner world over time. In Buddhist teachings, this process is known as bhavana, the cultivation of mental qualities through continuous practice. Bhavana is not about knowing, it is about training. Inner stability forms when you return again and again to the practices introduced in the previous gates, seeing the trigger before it fires, separating awareness from emotion, inserting the breathing interval, refusing emotional consumption, using silence as protection, and disarming resistance through acceptance. None of these become automatic in a day. They become natural through repetition. This gate introduces an identity shift that is essential for long-term transformation. Peace is not a mood that randomly appears. Peace is trained like a craft or discipline. Calm is not luck. Clarity is not an accident. Equanimity is not something some people are simply born with. These qualities are forged by deliberate attention over time. Every moment you choose awareness over reaction, the metal is heated. Every time you pause instead of explode, the shape is refined. Every act of non-consumption strengthens the structure. Every moment of acceptance removes impurities. Most people give up on inner stability because they expect immediate transformation. When they still feel triggered after 1 week of practice, they assume they have failed. The slow forge reframes this entirely. The question is not whether you fell back into old patterns. The question is whether you return to the practice once you noticed. Masters are not defined by perfection. They are defined by their commitment to return. With time, repetition changes the nervous system. It slows reactions, softens fear, expands awareness, and builds confidence. And one day, without fanfare, you realize that situations which once disturbed you now leave you untouched. The forge has done its work. Peace has become part of you, not because it arrived suddenly, but because you shaped it patiently. Most people believe they are being triggered by the world, but the deeper truth is simpler and more empowering. The world does not trigger you, your untrained mind does. The external event is only the spark. The fire is built internally. Once you understand that, the entire path shifts from controlling the outside to cultivating the inside. Reactiveness is not a personality trait, and it is not a fixed identity. It is conditioning. It was learned through years of emotional habits, unexamined beliefs, and automatic responses that were never questioned. And what is learned can be unlearned. Conditioning can be rewritten. Patterns can be dissolved. This is the difference between the person who breaks under pressure and the person who stays composed in the storm. As you move through the gates of inner stability, something subtle begins to change. You start becoming the person who can stay when others scatter. The person who breathes before speaking. The person who observes before reacting. The person who refuses to eat what poisons them. Strength no longer looks loud or dramatic. It looks like calm eyes and steady hands. There is a soft reality to acknowledge here. Life will not get quieter for you. The world will not become less chaotic. People will not suddenly stop projecting their pain, their insecurity, or their fear. The noise will continue. What changes is your relationship to that noise. Life does not get quieter. Your mind does. This transformation is not built on sudden insight or rare inspiration. It is built on practice. This is a craft, not a mood. You train it like a skill. You repeat it like a discipline. You forge it like a metal that must withstand heat. And over time, the mind learns to stay. If this path resonates with you, stay close. There is more training ahead.